I wanted to share this news concerning a bill that was just passed by the Senate Intelligence Authorization Committee. So, this is from the Ron Paul Institute. They're reporting on this bill, which reads the Senate Intelligence Authorization Act was introduced Friday last week by the Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Richard Burr. It's already been approved by the committee. It concludes with a one-sentence section as part of this bill, Section 623 they're referring to. It appears to threaten WikiLeaks in this section with potential harsh actions. The section categorizes the news organization which helps expose information obtained from whistleblowers as resembling, quote, a non-state hostile intelligence service. This is what the the Senate Intelligence Authorization, the committee, they are trying to categorize WikiLeaks as being a hostile intelligence service. And this mirrors comments from Mike Pompeo over a month ago. This article points that out. Senior leaders at WikiLeaks, such as Julian Assange, who will not leave the Ecuador embassy in London for fear of being arrested and sent to the United States for detention or prosecution, are also included in the categorization. So this is the section from the bill, Section 623, on the sense of Congress on WikiLeaks. And specifically, the wording from the bill is, it is the sense of Congress that WikiLeaks and the senior leadership of WikiLeaks resemble a non-state hostile intelligence service, often abetted by state actors, and should be treated as such a service by the United States. So without offering much, if any, proof, writing Tuesday at the Daily Beast, Spencer Ackerman noticed the section's language echoes almost exactly, as was pointed out, CIA Director Mike Pompeo's scathing April speech, calling WikiLeaks a non-state hostile intelligence service, often abetted by state actors like Russia. We're just hearing this from the intelligence community without them providing any proof. The whole Russian hacking hysteria comes from these claims from the intelligence community, again, without providing any real evidence. I think most of my viewers have assumed that the Russian hacking scandal has been almost entirely bogus the entire time they've been following it. And more recent news, if you've been following the Awan brothers scandal, supports the idea that many of us have had for months, that this was an internal leak, that the Russians had nothing to do with this. Pompeo, it's interesting that I'm going to just briefly touch on the Awan brothers scandal as well, but they mention how this mirrors almost exactly previous statements from Mike Pompeo. This was back in April when they were still heavily pushing the Russian narrative. It seems like they've almost dropped the mainstream media and the political establishment, at least, have been talking much less about Russia over the past few weeks. I think because that narrative is starting to fall apart even more. But these were the comments from April from Mike Pompeo. They're quite similar, where he says that WikiLeaks walks like a hostile intelligence service and talks like a hostile intelligence service. He said that it was time to call out WikiLeaks for what it was. He says a non-state hostile intelligence service often abetted by state actors like Russia. He went on to discuss the U.S. intelligence community's conclusion, quote, that Russian military intelligence had used WikiLeaks to release data of U.S. victims that the GRU had obtained through cyber operations against the Democratic National Committee. This claim has been was unsubstantiated at that time, other than the word of the intelligence service. They provided very little evidence. The story was repeated by mainstream media outlets like the Washington Post, which just so happened to be indebted to the CIA. The owner of the Washington Post has a $600 million contract with the CIA. They quote these anonymous intelligence community sources, the CIA sources, often quoted in the Washington Post as the so-called evidence that this traces back to Russia. And we've seen no hard evidence. And in fact, the Awan brothers scandal has given a lot more credibility to the idea that many of us had had for many months. And this could potentially involve Seth Rich as well. But most people that have questioned the status quo have thought that the DNC leak was an internal leak. Now, it's also notable, I was discussing this in my last video, the most recent developments with this arrest of Imran Awan. He was he was an IT staffer to former DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. He worked for dozens of other Congress people. He has stolen equipment. It's believed that he has a lot of incriminating information on people in Congress, and he'd officially been arrested last week on bank fraud charges. He was trying to flee the country after wiring nearly $300,000 out of the country. So this happened roughly a month ago. Imran Awan was arrested. He was released. I believe he was under house arrest for some time. The indictment had since been expanded to 4 separate counts, including the bank fraud charges. But the way that the courts are currently moving forward with this investigation, there are some serious omissions. And a former U.S. prosecutor from the Southern District of New York, Andrew McCarthy, he points out that the most glaring omission is probably that the indictment appears to go out of its way not to mention that Imran was apprehended while in the process of fleeing the country. This is one of the most provable, obvious signs of guilt. There are many potential charges against Imran Awan, and again, this could open up a wide rabbit hole that could implicate many Congress people, dozens of people from Congress. So it seems that, like most people in the political establishment, have an interest in not allowing this investigation to go too deep, to go too much further. So many people are believing that they have arrested Imran Awan. Many people believe that they are essentially charging him on lesser charges. He'll end up in jail on these fraud charges without having to speak about any of the espionage charges, any of the other massive security breaches, the corruption rampant throughout these other Congress people that he was dealing with. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, specifically, very suspicious in this. Awan's lawyer, notably, is a close friend with Bill Clinton. The Democrats are doing everything that they can to quickly jail Awan on lesser charges, silence him, I guess, by being in jail, and prevent this from going forward. It's interesting that the crackdown on WikiLeaks is happening the same week that they are trying to push this other scandal through the courts as quickly as possible, it seems. And obviously, there's this widespread censorship going across the internet as well. So in official channels, there's a veneer that they're dealing with this sort of corruption, but I think it's unfortunately, it seems like they might be just trying to bury the scandal, and by silencing channels such as this, by silencing whistleblowers, WikiLeaks, the intelligence community, by shutting down any people reporting on this, it seems like they're trying to just stop people from talking about it and just believing that the whole thing is fake news altogether. And that seems to be the plan. I mean, let me know what you think, how this all ties together in the comments. Leave a comment, leave a like on this video. Let me know what you think. I will follow up on how this bill goes forward. So far, it's been signed and it's already been approved by the committee. So this is a first step in labeling WikiLeaks as hostile. And of course, the intelligence community now will have an excuse to take harsh actions. We'll see how that all formulates exactly. Thanks for watching. If you leave a comment, it's greatly appreciated. I'll follow up shortly. Thanks, everyone.